He also said, this entire time I haven't felt like I've owed anybody any sort of decision at any point. Bro, all in or all out. It's like being a surgeon at a hospital. They need to know if you're available when they call tomorrow for a 7-hour surgery to an 11-year-old girl to save her life. I mean, it's not that serious, but it's serious. People depend on the top surgeon or the pilot or the CEO or the coach or the quarterback. They're depending on you. So you can't be like indifferent and casual and California cool. At one point, he talked about people in his inner circle are struggling. And I can have sympathy for that, but the NFL bench is not a therapy couch. Nobody cares. That's your problem. Nobody cares about your inner circle. Tom Brady was going through personal stuff. We didn't hear about it. Tom was about football. The minute Tom was in the facility, it's all football all the time. And he didn't talk about it. He was never distracting. Same with Peyton Manning. Didn't have a perfect life. So in closing, here's why I never bought into the New York Jets. And I always saw this relationship as more Carmen Electra and Dennis Rodman than Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson. Why? Say it out loud. You know, that's one of my rules in life. Whenever you're not sure if something's going to work, just say it out loud. Second-class football operation and a quarterback that's old, past his prime, and, you know, mostly committed. Does that sound like the Ravens? Does that sound like the Rams or the Lions or the Eagles or the Chiefs? No, and that's why you're the Jets. I think the way they treated him is Bush League. You don't have to. And I went on the internet yesterday. People, well, Aaron makes a lot of money. You either treat people right in life or you don't. Even if they're leaving the company, you don't treat them like that. And I talked to a GM in the league yesterday. Aaron Glenn was very rogue and weird how he treated Aaron. And a general manager told me yesterday, he said, coaches, sometimes you get lucky, and they're not only CEOs, but they're like scheme wizards, like Andy Reid or Kyle Shanahan. But it's really a CEO job. You're dealing with personalities. You got to know what the budgets are. You're dealing with egos. You're managing coaches. You're managing units, players, the media. It's a CEO job. Aaron Glenn right now is not a CEO. He doesn't know what he's doing because that's not how you treat people. That's just not how you do it. And Aaron, you're in or you're out, bro.
Okay. So I'm slightly confused. Because some of the things, because I'm sorry, I'm just not listening to this whole interview between Aaron Rodgers and Pat McAfee. I didn't even really want to make this video. And if it was more during the week, I would have skipped it. But since we're going into the weekend, I'm like, all right, you know, whatever. And sometimes when there's topics like this that are a little bit beyond just like, you know, concrete football, I'm like, okay, this can be fun because it's not political or anything like that. And I want to stay away from all of that. But like sometimes these types of conversations can be really interesting, especially during the off season where Colin's kind of talking about like, you know, how should someone be treated and all of that. I'm a little confused because some of the things that I've heard about this discussion with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, there's two things that I really want to point out. One, when Aaron's like, I don't feel as though I've ever owed anyone a decision at any point in my life or whatever like that. Like, I take issue with something like that because one of my favorite quotes is from Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he's kind of like, you know, you can call me whatever you want, but just don't ever call me self-made. And it's really this like understanding of, you know, how much help and support he's had throughout his life and throughout his careers. And for those of you who maybe don't know, but like Arnold has dominated like multiple categories, like multiple professions, like not just one. He dominated bodybuilding, right? That's really where he kind of cut his teeth, and all of that. He to this day, he is still the MJ of bodybuilding. People still, you know, just look up to him as like, that's Arnold, right? That is Arnold. And then he dominated, and actually before he even became an actor, he was already a millionaire. And it wasn't like because of bodybuilding. At that time, bodybuilding was like, you made like nothing. Like most of the bodybuilders were like, they had other, not most of them, all of them. They had other jobs. Like there wasn't sponsorships. We're talking about like in like the 70s and 80s and stuff. And like you had to like, you know, one of the other real famous bodybuilders was like a math teacher and stuff, right? Like it was, Arnold was really the only one full time. And again, he became a millionaire, I think through real estate, but like through other entrepreneurial type stuff. Then obviously dominated Hollywood. I mean, like, he was the guy. Like, he was all of the 80s and 90s. Like, he was the mega, 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 mega superstar, bigger than The Rock, because he essentially created the action star at that level. The Rock stood on Arnold's shoulders, you know, like there is no Rock without Arnold. So it's like a million times harder what Arnold did. And then obviously he did go into politics and all of that, which we don't have to talk about political career, but like he wasn't just one thing. And so he's like, hey man, like I've had a lot of help throughout the way, you know, and it's just like just acknowledging that and admitting that. And it's not to say that like Aaron's trying to act like he hasn't had help and support along the way, but just even a soundbite like that rubs me the wrong way personally. It's just a, I don't know, it's just a weird thing to say. But now Colin is saying, you know, that the way how the Jets treated him, you know, was poorly. Like, let's take a listen and see.
Two big takeaways on it because it was the end of the Jets relationship. My two big takeaways are, number one, the Jets are a second-class operation. Aaron Rodgers, his own dime, flies cross-country on his, you know, Citation or Jetstream or Gulfstream, probably plays about $50,000 there and back, maybe 60, and they give him 5 minutes. They could have told him they didn't want him on the phone. I don't care how much Aaron makes. I don't care what you think about Aaron. You can't treat employees that way. That's not how you treat people. Rams aren't treating people that way. Come on now. Niners aren't treating people that way. Dodgers aren't treating people that way. Baltimore's not treating people like that. That's a second-class move. And by the way, we have report cards to back that up. Remember when the player...
Okay, so that's why I thought there was something else, because I know it was the whole 15 minutes and that he was like there, he had to fly out there, and they're like, okay, we don't want you. But I guess I'm just not sure, because I could have seen this go both ways. I could have seen it be the same thing where they're like, oh, we don't want you, and you told me on a phone call. It was like they just called me. They didn't have the decency to meet me in person. So I guess like maybe the best case scenario would have been for the Jets to fly out to Aaron, I suppose. Like I don't really know what 100% the appropriate decision is here, right? Like it's like if you're in a long distance relationship with someone and you want to break up with them, like you're going to do it by text? You're going to do it by email? You're going to do it in the DMs? Are you going to have the person come to you or you come to them? Like it's kind of just like a weird situation when you have these athletes and these guys just essentially living all across the world, but definitely across the country. And yeah, I guess like it's you wouldn't want Aaron to have to fly out on his own dime, but like, you know, the way these guys honestly fly across the country and in their, you know, in their private jets and stuff it's very different than any of the things that you or I do. Unless you are living that private jet life, then, you know, definitely please comment and let me know. Let's connect, let's talk. But I mean, yeah, I don't know what that right situation is in that part. And also, like, I don't know, like they said, you know, they gave him like 15 minutes, whatever. I mean, Colin just said 5, but I thought that was more like kind of tongue in cheek. But like because I thought originally they were kind of like, you know, how do you want this messaging? And, you know, and Aaron's like, I don't care about the messaging. Like, I thought that was actually kind of respectful, where it's kind of like, all right, we're going to go in separate directions, but like, you know, how do you want us to kind of express this? Like, you know, what are some of the things that you kind of want us to say? I think it's just one of those weird situations where we don't really wholeheartedly know all of the information. But it does sound like the New York Jets were a little cold, but like also, Aaron's kind of cold as well. Like I think the whole situation is weird. Aaron's obviously taking shots at the owner, and yet the owner is really not that good of a person either. Like I think it's just a messy situation, honestly. I think that's what it really comes down to. I think when you're breaking up with someone, it's like two people who are just not good people, and they're breaking up with each other, and you're just kind of like, oh, can you believe what he did? Can you believe what she did? And it's just like, well, yeah, they're both not really the best of people, so like this was always going to be a weird exit to begin with. If you take the step back though, like, you know, like if I ever dated someone who just like wasn't nice or mean, or things got weird in the end, like I still want to be a good person throughout that whole process. So you know, like that's kind of my mentality, and I think that's kind of more what Colin is kind of speaking from, of this idea of like, yeah, you know, even if things were weird, even if Aaron was not perfect and jerky and this, that, and the third, like, you know, just be mature, right? Like be mature, do the right thing. again, I'm just not entirely sure, because then Colin's saying like, oh, do it over the phone, and I'm like, I don't know if you do it over the phone either. Like, it's just because then you don't even get to have a meeting with someone. So I don't know, honestly, and I think it probably really depends on the person. Like I think it really changes. Some people prefer to be ghosted. It's like if you're dating, if you've ever had the great experience of online dating, it's like some people want to be ghosted if someone's not interested, rather than being told, hey, I'm just not interested in you. Because hearing, hey, I'm just not interested, I'm not feeling the connection, like that can sting. Whereas other people just be like, hey, you, what are you up to this weekend? And then you just don't hear anything. And then like you said a follow-up, like, hope you had a great weekend. And then you don't hear anything and you're like, all right, they're not interested. And then like you move on with your life. Like sometimes that feels better rather than just a, hey, I think you're really sweet, but I don't want to talk to you anymore. So I think it all depends. I've had those conversations with other friends, men and women, in terms of their dating experience. And it's just, everyone kind of has different views. I'm trying to think of if I was a quarterback and I was being let go, I would not, it all depends on how much I care. If I really wanted to play for the New York Jets and they just call me and I'm now just like on my phone and I'm like, hold on, let me plug in my headset real fast. Like, what are you saying? You don't want me anymore, right? Like, I wouldn't like that either. I also wouldn't love to fly over there, but I also don't think I would care if I'm mega rich and essentially, a private jet is like an Uber. Like, I would probably just be like, yeah, whatever. Like I just would, I don't think I would care as much about that necessarily. Maybe it would be a little bit better for them to come to me, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. This slightly threw me for a loop because, again, I'm going to be 100% honest. I'm only following this type of stuff because I only care so much about this type of stuff. I really do. Like, this threw me off because of what Colin was saying about how bad the New York Jets mistreated him. And I would have thought that Colin would have defended the New York Jets, which is why I'm like, am I missing something? And again, I'm just being 100% honest. Like, I'm only going to research it so much because truthfully, I only care so much. And so I always see this channel as very collaborative. So it's very much like, if you guys know something that I don't, please let me know, because I don't know. I heard some of the sound bites. I read some of the quotes, and like, that's all Aaron Rodgers is going to get from me, quite frankly. And like I said, if this was more during the week, if this was Tuesday, Wednesday, like, I'm just skipping this story because I just don't care. Honestly, I really, really don't. And like this whole back and forth, because I even listened to John Middlecoff talk about this because it was one of his videos, and it was where he was talking about lots of things. And so like he brought this to the attention, and like I think he pretty much is saying similar things to me. Like he didn't say anything too strong about like, oh, the Jets did him wrong or this or that. But I just think that when you kind of continue to create a messy situation, it's just you're just gonna get messy outcomes, and you're gonna just it's just gonna be weird. But yeah, I do think, like, if you are someone like a new head coach for the Jets and you're coming into this situation, I do think it is always better just to be the more mature, the nicer person, whatever that may look like, no matter what it is. Just always be the person that that you would be treated the way how you would want to be, treat the person how you would want to be treated, right? The golden rule. No matter what it is. And I do think sometimes coaches, and even just someone in a position of power, they often try to do like the bravado thing, or do the thing that they think that they should do, or who they will be, or we're setting a new tone here, and like, this is how we operate now. And like, you kind of can go above and beyond. And I think when you reach a level of maturity, experience, and confidence as a leader in your own craft, whatever the category may be in, you're more comfortable actually just being a legitimate human. Once upon a time, I'm sure Andy Reid was very much more like, more guarded and whatnot. And then as he's gotten more confident in his life, more successful in his life, he's like, yeah, Like I'm more willing to be vulnerable. I'm more willing to be human. I'm more willing to be honest about various situations. You're no longer really pretending anymore, you know, especially when you're kind of up and coming. Like there is a lot of feeling of you, you know, it's called imposter syndrome. Like you don't really feel like you belong. Like you just feel like you're playing dress up. Like there was times that when I've got to new teams and was playing and I'm wearing a uniform, like it literally felt like I was just wearing a Halloween costume. Like that's literally what it felt like. It was like I'm not actually part of this team. This is just a Halloween costume. Where somehow it felt like everybody else belonged and I didn't. And it was just like, you know, a weird experience. And then like over time, again, as you feel like you belong, you feel more confident. You're more confident just being yourself. It's very similar to dating, right? When you first go on like a handful of dates with someone, like you're pretty much pretending to be someone. And then eventually you just are who you are. And I think sometimes you get that with like new coaches. You see that in a lot of weird like opening press conferences. Like they try to make jokes. They try to be like more clever with the media or this or that. And it's just like, dude, the best way is just to kind of admit to people, hey, I'm not really good in front of a camera. I've never done this before. This is always weird, you know? So like, sure, ask me the questions, but I'm going to fumble over my words. Like that's the thing too, right? You see guys fumble over the words and they try to act like it didn't happen and they want to skip over. And it's like, I felt that even when I was just making videos here where I was like, nah, man, like I'm going to shoot from the hip from the jump. I'm going to stumble over words. I'm going to mess up names. Like I'm not going to try to pretend to be anything that I'm not, because I want from the jump just to be like, this is me, man. You either like the way how this all unfolds or you don't. And if you like it, awesome. If you don't, then goodbye. And then it's perfect, right? It's just kind of weeds itself out. But there's still always a lot of pretending. And I think when there's a lot of pretending, a lot of egos involved, you get a messier situation like this, whether it's led by the ownership, whether it's led by new coaching staff, whether it's led by Aaron Rodgers. Things just kind of they just get weird quickly, honestly. That's what happens when you're not really 100% honest and everyone's just kind of pretending. Aaron Rodgers is always trying to pretend to be too cool. The owners of these NFL teams are always trying to be like, I'm the man, I'm ego. Coaches are always trying to like be bigger than they often are until they finally reach levels of success where they feel that they can be a little bit more, you know, human. And you know, round and round we go. But no one's going to watch this video anyway, because I don't think people care about Aaron Rodgers these days as much, which is also why I've been skipping a lot of these videos. So if you made it to the end, you made it to that rant, thank you so much. But those are just my very loose thoughts on all of this. As I said, I only care so much. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.